Breaking news out of the NFL, the Dolphins are benching Tua Tagovailoa and turning to Quinn Ewers as their starting quarterback. That's the latest from our NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. Tua is in the midst of the worst season of his professional career, leading the NFL with 15 interceptions through 14 games. And their loss on Monday night to the Steelers eliminated the Fins from the years of the playoff contention and will extend their league-leading postseason win drought to 25 seasons. So it'll be Quinn Ewers who will start this Sunday in a game against the Bengals. A seventh-round pick in this year's draft, he's appeared in just one game this season, threw for 53 yards in relief of Tua and Miami's Week 7 loss back over to Cleveland. We mentioned Jonathan Jones in his reporting. We now bring him in along with my guy Logan Ryan to take in this breaking news with everything surrounding the Dolphins and benching Tua Tagovailoa. And JJ, earlier just yesterday, head coach Mike McDaniel had alluded to everything being out there on the table as an option for what he was going to do. That included Tua. Now that this happens, are you shocked, surprised? What can you tell us?
Yeah, anytime that you are about 15 months separated from paying someone a $200+ million contract, and then the day after they play a terrible game, especially in the second half, that ultimately eliminates you from playoff competition during his worst season of his career, when the head coach, who got the job in part because of his belief in Tua, who has retained his job in part because of how he can bring the best out in Tua, ultimately says, yeah, everything's going to be on the table, that means you're not playing next week. And so this is not at all a surprise after what we heard yesterday from Mike McDaniel. As I mentioned, Tua, it has not been good enough. We'll get into the financials of it all in just a little bit, but now they turn to Quinn Ewers, a rookie quarterback. They don't turn to Zach Wilson, whom they gave a one-year, $6 million contract to be the backup there. Remember, this is coming after Tua suffered those concussions. Last year, they knew they needed to figure out the backup quarterback position. Clearly, that was another mistake because you can't turn to the guy that you paid in free agency. You wound up turning to the guy who is the day 3 pick. Who has been inserted once so far this season. Obviously, they hope that Quinn Ewers can take care of the football, make the checks at the line, all the things that you hope from a rookie late in his first year. But a big decision, one that we anticipated after what we heard from Mike McDaniel yesterday, and now it's all about what happens with Tua moving forward.
Look, whether you saw this move coming, which some may have, or you're completely shocked, regardless, it's a major move. It is a big move. And JJ mentioned when they're, 20 months ago paid Tua $200 million, right? Not a long time ago, $200 million to be the quarterback, not for a season or two, for the future. You look at how much money left remaining, and you're not part of the process going forward. Once you get a big contract, I was a player that I got paid at a franchise or two, and I signed a big deal for that franchise, a franchise player. You are then just looking for reassurances from year to year that I will still be that player in the future. And he won 4 straight games, right? But as soon as they lose that game and they're out of playoff contention, now Tua's not named the starter going forward. That is no assurance going forward. You got to take that as this could be my last day as a Miami Dolphin. And this move, in my opinion, has to come from someone bigger than the head coach. It has to come from someone higher up, maybe ownership. Maybe, obviously, the GM is not there. So probably ownership saying, hey, we got to start looking at the future. So as a player, when you sign a big contract, you got to make sure from year to year that you get reassurances. And when you're not making the playoffs, you want to go to ownership, or your agent wants to tell you, hey, but you're good going forward. I don't know what's going to happen to the head coach, but you're good going forward. That is not what his agent's telling Tua today. It's like, look, this does not look good. We got to see where the future lands. And I'm pretty sure that Tua's going to be playing somewhere else next season.
So that's an interesting point, and this usually would mean that Tua would be playing somewhere else. The contract is what may prevent that,
right?
Because he has $54 million in guaranteed money due to him next year. No matter what, that's going to him. For the Dolphins to cut him, the best way to cut him would be a post-June 1 release. Even still, that would incur a dead cap hit over 2026 and 2027 of $99 million. Remember, let's rewind a couple years ago when Russell Wilson was ultimately released from the Denver Broncos. That was a dead cap hit of $85 million at the time, and still is the largest dead cap hit in NFL history. This is almost $15 more than that. Of course, the salary cap has gone up since then, but that's just an understanding. We see right here the remaining contract and all that. There's some more technical numbers that we're not going to get into, but it is going to be very, very hard for the Dolphins to release Tua Tagovailoa. Then you say, okay, well, can they trade him, right? Well, who's going to take on this contract? And then, if no one is going to take on that contract, then the Miami Dolphins have to say, we'll eat a great portion of that contract in order to rid ourselves of Tua and get a draft pick or two in return. These would not be high draft picks, of course. But again, where is he going to go? His reputation, not very good around the league. We can rewind a couple months ago where he's throwing teammates under the bus. All right, there was that. We know that he can't play in cold weather. That has been proven at this point. So even if a cold weather team wanted Tua and would fit in the locker room, you don't trust that he can play his home games there, right? And so you start to narrow down, there aren't that many teams that ultimately would take Tua. And so then you realize, my goodness, is Tua actually going to remain with the Miami Dolphins as the highest paid backup in the NFL? How crazy would that be? Well, we've seen it with the Atlanta Falcons and Kirk Cousins. So could that potentially happen? I would say that financially for the Dolphins, it essentially is probably the best option available if no one wants to take on Tua. And right now, as it stands, I don't know who would.
Yeah, Logan, the market for him,
right.
Put the financials aside, although that's impossible to do. Just looking at him from a play standpoint, from what he's done this season, what he's done in previous seasons, who could you even see maybe being interested in biting? Is there anyone?
You know, a lot of it's going to depend on, like you talk about, the movement in the offseason, the head coaches. I mean, the Indianapolis Colts might have some decisions to make next year at quarterback, right? You sit there and they got Phillip Rivers doing it right now for them. See how this season ends. You talk about Daniel Jones, not going to be under contract, coming off of the Achilles that he's going to have, and then Anthony Richardson, it seems like they're moving on from him. So there might be some franchises that see that Tua has talent, they see there's something there with Tua. But to JJ's point, if it doesn't make sense to release him because of the money standpoint, then it makes zero sense to bench him. What are we doing? And that's the whole thing. This makes no sense. If he's going to be on the team next year, but you bench him with 3 games to go, what does that say to the locker room? Right. What does that say to the other guys? I know the quarterback plays, but there's also like a lot of other guys that play on the team too. And it's like, hold on, they're benching Tua, who's owed $55 million. What does that mean for my security? Right? So to me, the leadership in Miami has been off for a few seasons, but definitely this season. And Tua's part of the leadership problem that has been off. He's tried to fix it, but you can't do it publicly. You can't do it publicly. You can't call your teammates that way if you're not going to do it privately. So, in my opinion, this has been off. I look at Russell Wilson's situation. Sean Payton, for whatever reason, did not care about the money. He's like, this is not going to work in Denver. And look at Denver now. Look what Russell Wilson's at, and look what Denver is now. They ripped that Band-Aid off sooner than later, kind of took the money on the chin, and moved on quickly. If that's what Miami is doing, then that would make sense to me. That's a huge financial, doesn't make sense, but this move is similar to what Denver and Russell Wilson, in my opinion, than what Kirk Cousins in Atlanta is doing. Look how that situation is working out in Atlanta.
Right.
And I would say to that, because that's a fantastic point, where Denver was able to figure things out, it was a richer quarterback draft, right? They could get Bo next, I think, at 10th overall in that draft. Right now, the Miami Dolphins would be picking at 11 in the draft. Okay, so you say, oh boy, this is a very thin quarterback class, right? So how can they move up? Well, they're going to be competing with teams who also may be trying to jockey and get a quarterback. The Raiders, right? Right now they're picking at 2. You have the Cleveland Browns armed with multiple first-round draft picks. The New York Jets armed with multiple first-round draft picks. They have the most draft capital of anyone. What happens if the Rams and Matthew Stafford, they win a Super Bowl, he decides to ride off into the sunset because we know he's on a year-to-year proposition? Well, the Rams have their one and Atlanta's one, which is ahead of the Miami Dolphins right now. So I don't know that the answer necessarily would be in the draft for Miami because they would be at a disadvantage trying to leapfrog other teams who need a quarterback as well. So in comparing the two situations, which I think, Logan, you're absolutely right about, especially when it comes to money and moving on from the quarterback, the question, of course, then becomes, what else do you do? And if you can't acquire a quarterback in free agency, and you're going to have $50+ million tied up into a no matter what you do, I don't know that you can draft the quarterback of the future in the first round either.
So, Logan, when you ask